No fraternizing, no brown hair, and absolutely no red lipstick. Hugh Hefner's former girlfriends lived for free at the Playboy Mansion, but that doesn't mean they didn't pay a price. Life in the Playboy Mansion came with strict rules, including a very early curfew. While Hugh Hefner and his many girlfriends were sometimes seen out on the town, when the women weren't with Hef, they had to be at home on time. One of Hefner's former girlfriends, Isabella St. James, told Fox News Digital, "We had to be home by 9 p.m. Hef didn't want girls to go out and party without him. I suppose he didn't want us to have the opportunity to be unfaithful." In 2021, Jenna Bentley, another of Hefner's former girlfriends, opened up about her Playboy Mansion experience during an interview with Jam Press, saying, "It wasn't like we were prisoners, although if you missed curfew, you were sleeping on the lawn. They were very strict about it." It'll come as a surprise to literally no one that Hugh Hefner's girlfriends were expected to take part in weekly group sex sessions with the media mogul. While recollections vary regarding what happened at these not-so-intimate moments, some of his exes have opened up about the experience. During a 2015 interview with BuzzFeed News, Holly Madison revealed, "It was always Wednesdays and Fridays after the club. It was always exactly the same because that's just how he likes to live his life." According to Madison, all of Hefner's girlfriends were required to take part. She explained that they knew it was kind of a quote-unquote requirement for living there, and expected, and it had kind of a chore vibe, I felt. During an episode of A&E's Secrets of Playboy, Isabella St. James described what happened during the lead-up to sex.
Girls all shower, take a bath, and people sit on this bed, and he would smoke a joint, and girls would pop up champagne bottles and order food.
Zoe Gregory claimed that Hefner would take Viagra before having sex with all 7 of the girlfriends he had at the time, spending approximately a minute with each of them.
But when you're doing that, a minute feels like 5.
Hugh Hefner's girlfriends got to live in the Playboy Mansion rent-free, and they were given a weekly allowance. But collecting that allowance wasn't as glamorous as it sounds. In her memoir Bunny Tales Behind Closed Doors at the Playboy Mansion, Isabella St. James got candid about how it really felt to take money from Hefner, writing, "We had to go to Hef's room, wait while he picked up all the dog poo off the carpet, and then ask for our allowance. We all hated this process."
Games have always been a major part of what I'm all about.
According to St. James, the demeaning experience of collecting their allowance came along with criticism from the magazine owner, almost like a performance review. St. James explained in her memoir that Hef would always use the occasion to bring up anything he wasn't happy about in the relationship. Most of the complaints were about the lack of harmony among the girlfriends or your lack of sexual participation in the parties he held in his bedroom. St. James also claimed if we'd been out of town for any reason and missed one of the official going out nights, he wouldn't want to give us the allowance. He used it as a weapon. It appears that the late Playboy mogul enjoyed having his girlfriends completely beholden to him, making sure they relied on him financially and had no choice but to take his verbal critiques. You've likely noticed that all of Hugh Hefner's girlfriends look alike, particularly when it comes to the color of their hair.
Did you come in with this color? Because you all have the same kind of blonde hair.
Yeah, we have the same eye.
And according to Hefner's exes, there's a reason that all of his partners are blonde. During an appearance on the Power Hugh Hefner podcast in 2021, Holly Madison confirmed that you were expected to look a certain way, obviously. You had to have the blonde hair. In addition to having matching hair, Hefner also had high and expensive expectations for his girlfriend's wardrobes. Madison said, "You were given $1,000 a week that was supposed to be a clothing allowance."
There was an account of trashy lingerie.
In her 2015 book, Down the Rabbit Hole, Curious Adventures and Cautionary Tales of a Former Playboy Bunny, Madison said that Hefner would be mean if he didn't like someone's haircut. After getting her long blonde hair cut into a cute bob, Madison was on the receiving end of Hef's wrath.
I came back with short hair, and he flipped out on me, and he was screaming at me and said it made me look old, hard, and cheap.
While Madison was happy with her new style, Hefner's words haunted her for years afterwards, proving just how much control he had over his girlfriends. Since Hugh Hefner's death in September 2017, his ex-girlfriends have begun to share their experiences with the Playboy owner, and that includes the use of non-disclosure agreements. In the celebrity world, the signing of NDAs is fairly common, and Hefner made sure all the women in the Playboy Mansion had signed NDAs while dating him, and they didn't just concern his own behavior. During an interview with Jam Press, Hefner's ex, Jenna Bentley, claimed, "I had to sign a very, very, very ironclad NDA, which is why I can't talk about who had sex at the mansion, but I have seen a lot of celebrities have sex there, and I've also participated in a lot of it." When Holly Madison released her memoir, Down the Rabbit Hole, in 2015, Us Weekly suggested that she was able to be so candid because she hadn't signed a non-disclosure agreement while dating dating Hefner. However, Radar reported that Madison had in fact signed an NDA, meaning that she'd broken it by writing about her Playboy experiences. In fact, many of Hefner's exes have decided it was worthwhile to break their NDAs following his death in an attempt to share the truth of what really went on behind the scenes at the Playboy Mansion. While Hugh Hefner usually had multiple girlfriends at any one time, his partners weren't afforded the same privilege. In fact, one of Hefner's strictest rules was that his girlfriends had to remain completely faithful to him, even while he was sleeping with several people.
At the present time, there are 7 girlfriends, but it's an ongoing relationship.
In her memoir, Holly Madison confirmed that, while Hef could date an entire sorority house full of girls, we were to remain totally loyal. But during her appearance on the Power Hugh Hefner podcast, Madison clarified, "You weren't allowed to date other guys, which I was fine with too, because I wasn't interested in dating at that point in my life." Jenna Bentley also noted the strict no boyfriends rule during her interview with Jam Press, saying, "Even meeting boys was an immediate kick out."
Can you have boyfriends at all? You're not allowed
Half
to.
is our boyfriend. We don't want to be with anybody else.
So it would appear to be true that Hefner was possessive when it came to his girlfriends, and although he was allowed to date multiple people at once, his partners, no matter how many there were at a given time, were required to be one-man women. Moving into the Playboy Mansion came with a laundry list of rules from hair color to curfews, but it also meant that girlfriends were expected to give up their previous places of residence. While appearing on the Power Hugh Hefner podcast in 2021, Holly Madison explained, "You weren't allowed to have an apartment of your own, which, while I lived there were some women who did. They just kept that a secret from him." Of course, there were positives to not having to worry about rent in Los Angeles, which isn't cheap. In her memoir, Down the Rabbit Hole, Madison even opened up about the rags to riches feeling she experienced when she moved into the mansion, writing, "Whose life was I living? Private jets? Luxury hotels? Last month I was barely making rent on a shared apartment." However, the fact that Hefner's girlfriends weren't allowed their own apartments outside of the Playboy Mansion suggests that they were bound to a very particular way of life while living there, for better or worse. The 29-room Playboy Mansion with its infamous grotto had lots of staff at any one time to look after Hugh Hefner, his girlfriends, and his friends. However, when it came to the staff, Hefner's girlfriends were warned to steer clear. Isabella St. James told Fox News Digital, "There was no mingling with the staff. You weren't supposed to be hanging out with the butlers." So Hefner kept his girlfriends separated from his employees. Holly Madison confirmed the no mingling with the staff rule in Down the Rabbit Hole, writing, "The girls were not allowed to fraternize with the staff unless absolutely necessary. This rule was not to be taken lightly. Hef would totally lose it if he caught one of us talking with anybody on the service team." As for why Hefner was apparently so strict about this particular rule, Madison said that, according to rumor, his ex-wife once slept with a staff member, a bit of Playboy Mansion history that Hef did not want repeated. While the truth behind Hefner's rules will never be known, his girlfriends were careful who they became friends with while living in the Playboy Mansion, whatever the reason behind it. As if there weren't already enough rules laid down by Hugh Hefner in the Playboy Mansion, the late mogul's girlfriends were strictly banned from taking drugs, although this rule was regularly bent. In her memoir, Madison wrote, "The climate inside the mansion was toxic. I didn't participate in the cocaine benders, the side boyfriends, or all their harebrained money-making schemes that were all in direct violation of Hef's house rules." However, in A&E's Secrets of Playboy, another one of Hefner's former girlfriends suggested that the magazine founder actually did partake in hard drugs from time to time, saying, "Hef pretended he wasn't involved in any hard drug use at the mansion, but that was just a lie."
It was such a seduction, and the men knew this, that they could get girls to do just about anything they wanted if they gave them a Quaalude.
On Secrets of Playboy, Madison also claimed Hefner offered her Quaaludes when they first went out together, but once she or any of the other playmates moved into the mansion, it was a different story. It may surprise some to find out that Hugh Hefner insisted on spending Christmas Day with all of his girlfriends at the Playboy Mansion. If any of the women had family commitments, they needed to make sure they were back at the mansion for the holiday itself. In her memoir, Madison explained, "Girlfriends were given off days before or after the holiday to visit family and friends, but there were no exceptions for the actual day itself. Hefner was an excellent gift giver, so his girlfriends apparently looked forward to the holiday season in spite of all the rules." According to Madison, that was the one house rule that no one seemed to mind because Christmas was when Hef was most generous with his girlfriends.
Millions and millions and millions. Like I thought thousands, millions, $1 billion and one present.
Hefner gave his girlfriends a large budget to spend on gifts for one another too. While there were undoubtedly difficult and even upsetting moments at the Playboy Mansion for some of Hefner's girlfriends, Christmas was a totally different story.
Hef is a kid at heart. He loves it. He loves Christmas.
Just as Hugh Hefner disliked short hair and insisted that all of his girlfriends were blonde, he also reportedly hated red lipstick. In her memoir, Holly Madison wrote, "Among the many unspoken rules at the mansion, the red lipstick rule was one of the more notorious. I'm not over-exaggerating here. Hef absolutely despised red lipstick and wouldn't allow his girlfriends to wear the color." Madison even claimed to have experienced Hefner's wrath firsthand when she wore red lipstick following her ill-fated decision to cut her blonde hair short. After denouncing her hairstyle, Hefner gave her an order, saying, "Don't ever wear red lipstick again." Hef was very serious about his rules. It may have looked glamorous and exciting, but life in the Playboy Mansion came with a whole host of rules, many of which seem challenging, distressing, and even abusive to those of us on the outside. Fortunately, since Hefner's death, his former girlfriends are finally beginning to speak their truths and tell their stories in their own words, offering the rest of us an unvarnished look behind the scenes.